I'm going to give you a little bit of my background. I'd rather have this, I'll give you my background so you know what my expertise is, and then I'd rather have a conversation. I put some PowerPoint slides together today just for talking points to remind me or maybe trigger your questions you may have, but really, I'd like to be challenged and drill down on me for anything that you want to know, all right? So,
don't hold.
So I've been in law enforcement probably 30 years now, believe it or not. I started part-time with the Enfield Police Department, and we'll wait till they come in. Come on in.
Come on in, please. Here. How about right here, ladies? Okay.
So I started with the Enfield Police Department back in the early 80s, and then got recruited over to the University of Hartford back in the early 90s, and been there for 28 years, and started out in patrol, worked my way up to chief now, commander-in-chief, and I love my job, but started a lot of my, early in my career, started teaching expertise in my line of work in sexual assault investigations and stuff for law enforcement, the public, and then unfortunately these incidents where I call it threats on campus instead of active shooter or anything. I mean, you've got to be prepared for everything. So this stuff started happening around the country, and this goes way back, right? So so I started getting involved in that because it's scary. I can't be an expert in everything, but I teach a lot of things. So now I guess people call me an expert. I don't consider myself an expert, but I'm doing a lot of road shows about it. And when I do this stuff, I don't take it lightly, and I have to be the best I can be in it, right? And my department now trains constantly. I train constantly. I train faculty and staff and students and about this. You know, I go on vacation, and my daughter, I was on the cruise balcony on vacation reading Inside the Mind of a School Shooter, right? And my daughter's like, Dad, what is wrong with you? Like, you're on vacation, have a glass of wine, right? And I'm like, I have a glass of wine with this book, right? I don't know what the flight attendant thought it was okay, but I gotta be the best, right? So anyhow, that's how serious I take it, and I hold my department to that standard, and I train with a lot of other police departments on that now. And I've done a bunch of other presentations for schools. So in that, I've done a bunch of presentations with a survivor from, I don't want to scare anyone, so I won't get into graphics, but I will tell you just about the areas that I focused on was Christina Anderson, who's a survivor from Virginia Tech shooting. I did a bunch of presentations with her and talk about her story. And again, I'm not going to talk about it unless you have questions about it. I'm willing to share, but we have an hour, and if you have questions about it, please ask. Two of my best friends, good friends on the state police, were lead investigators for Sandy Hook. So I have a lot of information on that and done a bunch of presentations on that. And then the day of the Parkland shooting in Florida, I have friends down there that called me the night of that shooting and said, Mike, you have to come here. I'm like, why me, right? Why me? It's like, you have to be here. You're the best at this. And long story short, I said, there's people good as me in Florida, trust me. I wasn't so happy with the police department, obviously, but so I went down there and spent some time, a lot of time with some survivors of that incident, and I won't go into any details on that. It's horrific. That's right. It's just horrific, right? I was telling Joyce just this week, the director of the FBI in Connecticut called me the day of that Netherlands shooting. He got me on a conference call for that. I was in a car, and he said, he's called me. I'm like, Brian, why did you call me? No, get on this conference call. I'm doing a briefing from the FBI headquarters in LA, Secret Service and everybody. So I'm like, oh my, I'm just a chief. I'm nobody. But I'm humbled by that credentials. I'm humbled by people. Joyce was in a presentation I did here, apparently for a couple hours, that the president and everyone was in, and I guess I travel by word of mouth. I love what I do. I don't charge to do it, right? I don't believe in that. If I have to travel, they might travel. That's it, right? If not, then give me a salad and a donut and that's all, right? So that's my background. These incidents are horrific. I'm not, again, like I told Joyce, I don't want to scare anybody, but I know for me, the worst thing to do is be in denial that things can happen, right? That's really the biggest thing I have problems with, right? I've been doing this a long time, and prior to Sandy Hook, I'm in the area, and I offer my, come if you need me. I don't get anything out of it, so it doesn't bother me if I come or not. So after Sandy Hook, people were calling me, and like, Mike, I need you now, you gotta come, and I'm like, I appreciate that, but my calendar's booked months out, so I'll come, but no, we need you now, it's an emergency. I know, but why are you scared now and not, right, before? Why now, right? So anyhow, ask me questions as we go through this, because my slides may make sense to you, they may help you, but really, I'm here for you. I'd rather you just ask me questions, right, about what concerns you. If I don't have the answer, I'll tell you. And if I don't have the answer, I'll tell you, and I'll go find the answer afterwards, so I'll prepare next time, because I can not have the answer. But sometimes there aren't answers, right? I mean, people ask me, how do we protect ourselves? You can't always protect yourself, right? I mean, you can't guarantee that you're going to drive home today and not get in a car accident, right? Unless you're going home in bubble wrap or something. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you can't, but you got to do the best you can. And like I said, at least in Connecticut, prior to Sandy Hook, people were in denial, and that's what hurts people, being in denial. It's better to be in that with the focus with the horse blinders on and just looking straight ahead, because who wants to go in their daily life? I mean, I teach a lot of classes on personal safety and all this stuff, right? Who wants to go in their personal life saying, oh my God, what do I do if a threat comes in here? What do I do if, I also did I know people that did some after action studies about the Vegas shooting, and I can tell you some stuff about that if you're interested. One thing about that, because I don't think it's in my PowerPoint, but one thing about Vegas was, and this pertains to any environment you're in an emergency, people are going to exit the way they entered. So people are going to exit the way they entered. So if you're in an emergency, look at your environment wherever you go. Don't go out the way you came in, because everyone else is going there, right? So that's what the plan was for that shooter in Vegas. Was he planned for? I don't want to be graphic, but he planned to corral everyone to that exit point where there's a fatal funnel. So there was a big congestion there of all the people. Other people were jumping fences and everything, as we know, but don't go out the way you came. So look at that when you go into a movie theater or a restaurant, or wherever you are. Just think about that. That's what happened just in the fire at that Rhode Island fire, right? All those people got trapped trying to get out, right? So I've been at a bunch of conferences, and I spoke at a conference recently. They asked me to speak at a conference in Florida about this, and part of that conference was the officers that were at the Pulse nightclub, right? And the Pulse nightclub people, I'm not blaming those people, but people were so focused on looking for exit signs and trying to get out those exits. Those exits were literally from here to me away, and they went in and barricaded themselves in a bathroom. That's how close they were to escape, right? Because it's human nature. I'm just telling you, I train police officers, right? It's human nature. If your mind isn't trained for that, it's not trained for that. You're just going to panic, and that's just human nature, right? So I could talk 100. Let's go to the next slide. Unless you have questions. Anything so far, Joyce? Because
no, well,
we'll be here
for
till
me,
dinner.
whenever I do my evening consortium events now, and like tomorrow I'll have about 115 people. The first thing I do is tell them, if there's an emergency, go out all these doors. Don't go out the door you came in. Go out.
Oh, good.
Please do not be
Yeah.
afraid to go out these doors. And,
Yeah.
and
You have to push them out.
yeah, we need to let them know
Just
that,
like
and it's a natural thing, so if you have all these people, you're responsible for them, so.
Yeah.
Not only to tell them where the facilities are, right?
Right,
But also
right.
where are those exits, and
Yeah.
they please go out.
Because
those
it's
doors.
unknown what's behind those exit doors, because you didn't come in that way,
Right.
It's just unknown, so it's not comfortable.
Right.
So if it's an exit,
Right.
it should be an exit, right?
It's a
So-
scary topic, right? So you
Yeah.
have to be comfortable to just let them be aware, you never know, so these are those.
Yeah, I mean,
I think the more we talk and have these
Yeah.
types of, events and talk about it, is that it's becoming more
Right.
almost natural to us now.
it's almost natural, yeah.
Because it is so prevalent, and
Yeah.
we're always drilling and we're always talking
Yeah,
about it.
unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
Because people used to, again, I could be very graphic, but I don't even want to be graphic to law enforcement. Like the videos I have from one of the students from Parkland shared all the videos. She took videos of this. She doesn't, long story short, she shared them with me. No one else has them. I can't even share them with law enforcement. They're so bad. You know
My
what I mean?
mother's closest friend lost her granddaughter.
Oh my God.
And the little girl's uncle was a police officer, so he was one of the first ones on the scene. He quit after that.
I don't blame them.
She unfortunately told my mother told me, and I wish that it was just always in my head now of what was seen in
What
that
was seen,
classroom.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
nothing ever
No,
want to even hear.
No, and I don't even want to, again, my mission, I don't want to talk about law enforcement, but my mission with law enforcement is I need to prepare them the best they can be so they're not completely shell-shocked when they get into that environment. You got to be prepared, focused, and mission-driven, right?
And I think that's what happened in San Diego.
So-
They didn't expect to see it.
Yes. So that's what I'm saying. I don't want to give them PTSD from training, but
You need to be
be as realistic as possible, right? I don't know if you can see this, but I'll read it to you. This may not apply to you, so I don't know. But important to have a team or at least trained individuals for, I'm talking about threat assessment, triage of information. If you know information, again, learning what I learned when I got here, this may not apply. So what I'm talking about here is threat assessment. So if you know of I guess in your case, maybe a parent, I don't know, you can tell me different, but if that parent may be a threat or talking about being a threat, I'm quickly making this up, but it could be, divorced parents, right? During domestic violence relationships, and they're picking up children or dropping off children and making threats against, I guess, school. Please don't be shy about correcting me, because I'm
No, you're good.
just so. So you need to vet out that threat, right? You need to figure it out. And I say make a team. You got to have a team. If you can't, then ask me a question. But you have to have a team of trained individuals. How are you going to vet that threat, right? Are you just going to give it to the police, and the police are going to figure it out, or because it's your facility, the police? When I talk about preparedness, the police are 5 to 10 minutes away in an emergency sometimes, right? Maybe not, but have a team of trained individuals. And when I talk about team members, in schools it would be campus police, human resources, counseling. Those in your environment, I think it would be your director of your center. Maybe, I don't know if you have a human resource. There's a chair over here if you want. Director of your center, maybe someone from the lead teacher. I don't know who those people would be, but I would have a team. Don't figure it out on your own. Don't, even me, right? I'm an expert in this area, but I have a team. I have a team that I got to depend on to, let's go around a table like this and let's figure it out, right? I'm not a psychologist, right? I'm not a human resource director. All these people need to weigh in. Director, dean of students. All these people need to weigh in, and director of counseling, and weigh in and give me, and you're making your best effort. Resources as a team. What are your resources? Again, I'm making it up for you guys. What are your resources? Most of the times, I think you're going to vet it out to the police department, right? Because in my environment, I'm going to have someone on my team start doing some collection of data, right? We're going to start collection. Who's going to check social media? Who's going to see how they're acting in class, acting how not in class? Who's going to check with their friends, their roommates, their resident directors, resident RAs? What are their friends? What are the network of friends? The team gathers information, and the team analyzes the information and assesses threat potential. Now, when I'm talking about gathers information, that's what I was just talking about, right? How you gather, I don't mean to stand in anyone's way, so how are you gathering that information? And if if it's a parent, how are you gathering that information? Can you, I guess in your environment, would it be the police? Or do you have any way to gather information? I don't know, could you gather it from their other spouse, the husband or wife, or ex-husband and wife, or are there children old enough in your centers that could share information with you? I don't know this, but could they be giving you clues? I don't know. Right? Could they be making comments where something's going on at home at night that they're giving you comments that I mean, I can tell you awful stories, and I won't, about, and you may know them, about centers that you probably oversee that have been attacked. Awful. I mean, Dave Grossman, I do a lot of, been to a lot of his presentations. I posted him. Dave Grossman was a West Point psychologist, and now he was a lieutenant colonel in the Army, and now he does law enforcement. He does teaching on this, right? Threat assessment and shootings. Amazing person. I mean, if you want to just Google him, Dave Grossman. But he talks about that. He talks about a graphic. In the last presentation I was at of his, a graphic attack at a daycare center using knives. Like, are you prepared for that? And how do you prepare for that, right? So, go ahead, Joyce.
So you're talking about seeing red flags before?
Yes, right. So everything, I'm going to get, my last slide is on violence planning. So I'll go through those steps with you. You need to catch it early, right? Because there's signs and symptoms of every time. Like, and most of the time, I don't know, adults like me, I'm not on social media, so over 90% of the time they're sharing it by pre-attack information that people either didn't tell somebody or knew and didn't know how to tell somebody or what to tell, right? Because they didn't want to be a snitch. They don't know, are they profiling, like the incident in San Bernardino, that attack? That neighbor, after that attack, said, I should have told, I saw all these clues and I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want to profile this couple, right? Because I felt like I was being biased.
Well,
right?
I wonder, I would put this out to all of you, if we see a red flag, that would be worthy of calling DCF, I would imagine. That would be our
Well, I
first
think you're
step.
mandated, right?
We're
Are you?
mandated, yeah. So if we see, if we have a feeling that a child is in danger, from a family member, then that we
Right.
would
Yeah.
act on that that way.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to suggest that, but I'm talking about globally in your whole center, right? Does that bleed over to being a risk to your center, right? Am I making sense, right?
The police department, what you might call it, not an official report, but
Yeah.
somebody in
Yeah.
the community who's policing kind of concept is, often our families are frequent flyers,
Yeah.
the ones that we're most
Okay.
concerned about.
Okay.
So they may have other information, or then again, they'd be more alert to looking for more information.
But understand that, and I ask you not to depend solely on the police department, because the police department, like, we know from Parkland, right, that couldn't have been more obvious, right? So, and I only speak to, this is my profession, I love my profession, right? My brother's in this profession, I'm not speaking bad about it, it is what it is, right? But the police, you will see more of that day-to-day interaction than the police. The police will be, kind of a passerby, right? So just don't depend on, you tell the police that information and it's taken care of. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Just, you gotta monitor that essentially as a threat assessment team. When I say a team, if you have a team poses a threat, the team alerts, I made this up because I didn't know complete, but I could change this. The team alerts the director of the center, right? Whoever the director of the center is, and responds and manages threat assessment to reduce the risk. What I'm talking about here is case management. So just do case management of your threat. So I don't care what it is, right? You got to continually monitor that and see if you need to make adjustments, right? Does parent, even look at the TSA, right? You can't go through TSA right now and make any kind of comment that you're making a threat and call it a joke, right? Nope, it's not a joke, and you're going to be held accountable for that joke, right? Now, you're not getting on a plane, the FBI is going to do a background on you, and you're in custody, right? Too bad for you for making that joke. You shouldn't have, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, you can't come into our center and say, I'm going to come back with a bomb, and you know what I mean? Well, that's not okay, right? You know what I'm saying? Now, you're held accountable to that. You're not putting everyone at risk, and does that make sense what I'm saying? So, don't underestimate those comments either. So, just like I talk about in domestic violence, right? And stalking and all that stuff. Don't underestimate what people could do and what their comments are. Take them seriously, right? Again, please bring this up to me if you have comments about it, but never underestimate somebody's comments. Even if they laugh about it, they think it's a joke, you gotta do some threat assessment work and case management of that, okay? So monitors and reevaluates plan to ensure safety. So we'll talk about that a little bit, but what is your plan and is this individual parent, I'm making it up, but parent getting more volatile, making more comments, whatever, right? Does it increase, right? Is that increasing? And then do follow up as appropriate, right? I mean, if you think this is a potential threat to your area and you notify the police and more concerning behavior, whatever it may be, you need to let the police know and take a stand and say, I don't feel safe and we need to do something about this, right? Sometimes, the police can only do so much until something happens, right? I understand that, but having a plan in place for your center, it's unfortunate, right? This is when I teach domestic violence, like protective order, restraining order is only as good as this piece of paper until something happens, right? Yeah, I understand that, but there's a bunch of other things you can put in place in the meantime. Okay, so this could apply to what we're talking about. So what are the subject's motives and goals? What are do they have a vendetta to get back at somebody? Do they try to get even with another spouse? Your center, did you upset them? Did you not let them pick a kid up when they were supposed to be able to, and they're going to get, so what is that? Have there been any communications or suggestions, ideas or intent to attack? So anything, I talked about that, just off the cuff comments, right? Those mean something. You didn't just make that up. And then inappropriate interest. A lot of times you're looking here on, I could talk a lot about other incidents that I work with, but what are their interests? Most of them will, sometimes you can't tell this if we're talking about adults, maybe they do. But they'll brag about this on social media all over the place. I have a bunch of slides Joyce saw in my last presentation about that stuff that they posted on social media. Going target shooting today and get out my frustration or something, right? And what does that mean, right? And that's new. That you've never said that before. The shooter from Virginia Tech, he went to the gun range and put his targets on the ground. He shot the targets on the ground because he knew the students were going to the ground when he started that attack, right? So he's like, I'm going to shoot the targets on the ground because that's where the kids are going. And we practiced that. So, and people shared that after, right? Now that's a concerning behavior. I don't put any targets on the ground. So that's a concerning behavior, but access to weapons, incidents of mass violence, do they talk about it? Either in passing or on social media, whatever, I don't know. Like, I'm just bringing stuff up that's really important. A big thing here is, especially on incidents that have happened, pre-indicator, it could be even a child. Pre-indicator is harm to animals. Harm to animals is a big indicator for pathway to violence. I'm not saying that every kid that harms an animal is on the pathway to violence. I'm saying that understand that that's a common past indicator. Does that make sense? I'm going a little fast, but any questions on anything I've covered yet that you want to talk about at all? Going a little slow down and try and talk about. This is a big one, and I'll cover it at the end. I think there's a slide in the end talking about the pathway to violence and what you need to look for. Attack-related behaviors, I talked about that. It's not always the same though, right? I mean, the shooter at Sandy Hook played some pretty awful video games, right? I'm not blaming it on video games, but Dave Grossman wrote a book called "Stop Teaching Our Children to Kill," and it's about video games. I'm not saying everyone that plays bad video games is a killer, but one of his favorite pastimes to do with for him was he would go to the movie theater and play Dance. Get on the Dance Revolution game from the time they opened till the time they closed all day, right? So yeah, it could be something different, but he did play some violent video games. But what behaviors do they have? You know, that game, Grand Theft Auto, I think it's called, or something like that. So I never played. I don't even know I know what it looks like. It's in some of my presentations, but that game is pretty horrific from what I hear, right? Pretty awful. And that game made more money than the music industry in the country. That game, that's the sales, the profits from that game, more money than the complete. I'm talking about iTunes, concerts, ticket sales, like that game. I think it's out to version 5 or something. And yeah.
And we know a lot about the case studies that did not go so well, which some of the signs were missing.
Yeah.
Are there case studies of places, agencies, schools in which the people sort of had the right things in place and kind of their
Well, that's
system
an
of how
interesting
they
question.
did it? You know, like we sort of are
Where incidents
learning
were-
from what people
Yeah,
didn't do, but we know
Where they
people
had
that
things in place and
thwarted-
it still happened, you mean?
No, where it didn't happen.
Oh,
but
it didn't
We
happen.
were able to.
Oh yes,
prepare
I have
to prevent-
those are a ton of stuff. Yeah, because I didn't want to go get my other PowerPoint and put it in my computer today, so I put the last slide that you see here is pathway to violence. So I just was looking up that to put a slide on, and I come up with a bunch of stuff just Googling that pathway to violence, right? And there was a bunch of information on really what that comes down to completely is information sharing, right? Pre-attack information that people know about to be cognizant of and sharing that information, right? I could wrap this up in 5 minutes. If we can train people on pre-attack information, pre-attack indicators, comments, social media posts, behaviors of concern that are not their norm, if you know these people, and sharing that, we're good. When I say we're good, we're gonna get 90% of that. Does that make sense? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why I want to get out and do training for everyone and be like, man, if you just let me train and pay attention, like, I'll talk about this LiveSafe app I have here, right? So I have this LiveSafe app that I promote, I pay for on my campus, and that LiveSafe app has a ton of features on it, right? And
What is it called? LiveSafe?
LiveSafe,
LiveSafe.
LiveSafe. You can have this flyer if you want. I only brought one because I was looking for another one. But LiveSafe app here, for me, there's a bunch of features that all the campus wants to use on that. There's a safe walk, where you can virtually watch someone walk across wherever you are, across the country, right? It's a GPS. I can watch someone walk in China right now, right? You can call your mother, hey, I'm going to Starbucks, I'm in China, can you watch me walk? If I don't get there, I'm gonna set this alarm. If I don't get there and call you, then we'll check on me or whatever. There's a bunch of features, but there's a tips app on there that is my sole point of paying for that. That is worth every dime to me. That if people are using those tips, just press the button and you can take a video, a picture, audio recording, and you can send it to me and you can be anonymous. All I want to know is, hey, there's some concerning behavior with a coworker, another student, faculty member, whoever that is, and you send it to me. You can remain anonymous or not. If you're anonymous, my dispatch center can go back and forth with you. It's an emergency alert to us, and they can share the post with us. I don't know how many tips a day, 30 probably, yeah. And it's worth every dime to me. Like, if I'm saving an incident like that happen so I'm talking about, right,
So
share the concerning behavior, report tips, because in a generation a younger generation, right, everything's on social media. They're not gonna call us on the phone to the tip line, right? No, I'm not doing, they don't talk on the phone when you call them, right? So I'm gonna send the tip, right? So I'm gonna send the tip, comes into our dispatch center, so that's huge to me, like, just sharing tips, right? And we know from, I hate to keep using Parkland, but I don't know of another incident that tips were shared that they didn't heed the warning to, right?
There were a lot of red flags for that one.
Huh?
There were a lot of red flags for that one.
There's thousands of red flags, yeah, yeah.
I was going to ask, how do you support people in being cautious and vigilant without making false assumptions?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and that's what I tell people is even on those tips. So I was doing a presentation not too long ago, and someone said to me, "Hey, there was someone walking across campus, and they had the backpack on. They had their backpack on backwards. So the front was here, the straps were in the back. It was concerning to me, and not normal behavior. Should I report that?" I said, "Yes, send it in. Right? You guys are educators, right? Let the experts in my area decide if that's right. That's what I'm saying. So that's what I try to get out to the public. Report everything. Keep the police department busy. You know what I mean? Let them earn that donut. I mean, but keep them busy. Don't. If it's a concern to you, it's a concern, right? That's really my big point.
But how do you balance that with racist biases?
Yeah.
You know, so you're not reporting people for walking while black.
Yeah. The police department has to justify that, right? I've been there. I've been doing this for 30 years, right? You don't think I teach a class I'm an instructor in fair and impartial policing. I teach a class on fair and impartial policing, right? And I'm so strict on my department about me not, everyone has biases, right? We all have biases. We gotta check our biases. But we can't let that stand in the way. Does that make sense what I'm saying? I cannot chance, I won't. I would rather defend myself on a stand about being biased than be planning funerals, right? Yeah, I'm so focused on that. Yeah, you can't, don't please, it's not yours.
Especially if they're not like doing anything that's otherwise suspicious other than their skin color.
Well, that's different, right?
Well,
I mean,
yes.
yeah, I mean, if then someone's being biased. If you're just calling me because someone's skin color, then, right? But what is the behavior, right? Is there concerning behavior that you need to share with us that we need to talk about, right? And again, a backpack, someone just walking around aimlessly, whatever it is, right? Someone's carrying a bag, right? Someone's walking through with a bag and they're on a mission. That Parkland incident, right? Those security people got fired because they all admitted, hey, he got out of an Uber, and that guy, he recorded himself on a phone and sent it out. He didn't send it out, it was on his phone. He recorded himself on the phone exactly what he's gonna do. I'm getting in an Uber, I'm going to this class, I'm getting out of the Uber, I'm walking across campus, I'm going in this door, it's gonna be propped, I'm gonna go up to the, right? And those people at Parkland, those security officers admitted, they said, I saw him get out of the Uber and he's walking across campus with his bag, with his long gun bag. I saw him go into I thought it was concerning, all this stuff, right? What did you do about it? You didn't do anything. They talked about it over the radio, but nothing more, right? So that's what I'm saying. It really comes down to report every darn tip and keep us busy, right? That's it, report everything. And if the police department's annoyed, they shouldn't be, but if the police department's annoyed, I would keep calling. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I really appreciate all of this non-reactive information.
Yeah.
You know, it seems like everything's always about, well, we should have.
Yeah.
But I like
Yeah.
that this is a proactive approach.
Yeah.
But I was wondering about all of our centers, just in general.
Yeah.
Is there something that's been proven or is known to be sort of a deterrent? You know, regular schools didn't used to have, you know, locks at the door.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
and we've reacted to all of these things that have
Yeah.
happened. But is there something for centers? Because here we have all of these little children
Yeah.
and mostly women
Mm-hmm.
in these spaces that are
Isolated.
supposed to be welcoming and accepting
Mhm.
of people. But how do we present ourselves as centers as being a little
Secure.
tough girl and don't mess
Secure.
with us kind of?
Yeah.
You know, I want us not to be
Yeah.
targeted.
Right.
So
Soft
is there
targets, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So is there any proven like like something, I don't know, like the office is close to the door, or is there something physical about the?
Let me get into that
Keep
at
us-
the end. Yeah.
Oh,
don't-
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
no, you're not jumping ahead, but I wanna,
I feel like I'm not being clear.
no, you are. That's
Okay.
fine, yeah.
Sorry.
Please ask that question and let's talk about that, because that's important. But this pre-indicator information leads up to what you're talking
Okay.
about. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay, Joyce.
Okay.
Does the subject have the capacity to carry out any act of targeted violence? Is he organized enough to carry out an attack? You know, don't underestimate that. That's not your. That's a threat assessment team evaluation. Does that make sense? You wouldn't decide that. Is the subject experience? So what's going on, right? So again, you can put the pieces together. This is a threat assessment team evaluation, but you know, did his wife just leave him? Is his wife with another guy? Is he frustrated about that? I'm making this up, but is he mad about that? Is he frustrated about that? Is now the guy, the ex-wife's boyfriend, now able to pick up his child? That would send him over the edge and all that. You know what I mean? Just making that stuff up and saying, man, these would be triggers for any human, maybe, right? But these would be triggers to maybe send somebody to that. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Does the subject see violence as acceptable, desirable, or the only way to solve, right? So now they get to that point where, you know what, I can't go on like this, or I can't go on with somebody else picking up my child and she has a boyfriend or whatever, right? Now this ruins my life. I can't, and he may make comments about that to somebody, to another parent, to a teacher, to anybody. Don't take that lightly. Is the subject's conversation or story consistent with that, right? I mean, is he talking about stuff and being pretty direct about that? Are there are others concerned? So I'm making this up, talk to other, does he make comments to other teachers and say, reach out and talk to each other, right? Other parents, hey, have you noticed his behavior changing, or does he make comments? Has he talked about anything? Whatever. Just try to do some intel gathering that, because you know people that are bringing their kids there or whatever, right? So, what circumstances affect? What would make things worse, and what might make things better? So, you can ask that person that, right? Hey, what are your frustrations? What would solve your frustrations? What outcomes do you want, right? And you may share that with another spouse. I'm kind of using this, unless you have other examples, I'm trying to use an example that I can think of, but you may have other examples. But what might make things better? And again, the pre-indicator information that I talked about, these threats have shared information with their cohort. There was just one here in South Windsor this weekend, right? South Windsor High School, I think it was the high school. Was it high school? I think it was one of the schools. And there was a social media. Hey, if you're my friend, don't come to school on Monday. That's a big deal, by the way. It's a big deal, right? So, what might make things better? Why did you say that? Thank God someone reported that. But go ahead, Jess.
Okay.
I don't know if all this applies, but I'll go through it quickly. Review emergency plans and make sure your whole center is aware of the emergency plans. Don't just take it for granted because you got a piece of paper, it's posted on the wall, whatever. Practice those emergency plans. Test them. I don't know how big your centers are, but do you have a communication procedure in place? Whether it's you're all on a group text, or I don't know, making some stuff up, but.
Well, I think it's a good thing to think about,
Yeah.
right? Maybe a group text or some way that you can
Because
communicate.
if you go into lockdown,
Right.
like me,
Right.
I ask people to go into lockdown together. You're
Right.
stronger in numbers instead of going all separate areas, because you may be in a lockdown for a long time.
Might be, yeah.
Are you gonna?
How are
Are
you
you
gonna
okay? Are you
communicate?
okay?
Right.
And then sometimes
Right.
the phone lines may get clogged up, right?
Right.
Because of an emergency, right? So now
Yeah.
you can't even check on anybody. You can't call home. You can't do anything.
Right.
So, so I would. Again, I have no idea what kind of facilities you have, but
Right.
I would have a communication avenue,
Right.
test that communication avenue, and then test your emergency plans. go to establish evacuation points, even if you're evacuated. I'm going to talk about that now for a second because I'll forget. I'm going to talk about buildings in general, but it may apply to you because I want you to think about this. I'm talking about evacuations. So I'm going to use Parkland again. In Parkland, we know, you probably know too, but they started evacuating because of a fire alarm, right? And then they heard gunfire, and they started running back to classrooms and trying to hide in place and do all that stuff. I would say, and then do everything you can to barricade, right? Barricade and shelter in place. Now, my own daughter talked to me about a lockdown. She was student teaching at the time, not in the school she's teaching in now. Student teaching at the time, and she said, "Oh, we did a lockdown drill and we barricaded." And one of the school administrators came by and said, "Oh, you can't barricade the door like that because if one of the other school administrators sees it, they're going to the fire marshal will fine us because that's a fire code violation." And I said, well, I took a deep breath and I said, "I don't care about fire alarm, fire code violations." I used some descriptive words, but I said, "I don't care. Violate the fire code." Is that clear? Violate the fire code every time. I got 2 fire marshals that work for me, trust me. And there's a bunch of legislation that I'm involved in about barricading doors and about things you could put on doors to lock them, to barricade them and to strap them closed, all this stuff. And the fire marshal doing his job, but whatever, fire marshal, you can't do that, it's fire code. Yeah.
Well, this is completely different than that. It has to do with the fire drill, because my office is in a school, and when they do the fire drill, all those kids go out, they're in lines, and they're sitting, and then the teachers show the code, they sit there, and I always thought to myself, target practice.
It is.
And I'm thinking, how in God's name can...
I can give you so many examples of that.
But they continue to do that because they're training for a fire drill, and then they do lockdown as a different drill.
I know.
Well, all the way back to, it was in Arkansas,
Yes.
there was a middle school that the kid, right at the time when all this,
So Dave Grossman, that
Crazy
was his
started.
grandkids school system.
yeah, but that's what
Dave
happened, they
Grossman,
pulled the
yes.
fire
They hid
alarm.
in the woods with
There was
rifles.
another one with a rifle
Yeah.
waiting,
Mhm.
yeah.
For them to come out.
You
Yeah.
do Alice training in district,
Yeah. Yeah.
they tell you to disperse, they want the kids to go in like towards a certain.
But not for a fire drill, right?
No.
Yeah.
No,
But
Yeah, that's the problem,
evacuation.
right? Because you never know. So that's what I'm saying. You're never going to be able to. We talked about. I don't know who I was talking. Someone asked a question about. You can't prevent it all the time. You know what I'm saying? So if you're doing a fire drill, then you got to practice a fire drill, right? You can't.
But are there more fires in schools
No,
or
no,
shootings in
no.
schools?
Yes, that's my point, right? So Dave
We're
Grossman would say.
required to do
So
10
Dave
fire
Grossman would
drills a
say,
year.
fires
Yeah,
aren't killing
exactly.
people. We got fire alarms, fire retarding sealant. This is a bunker. You could bomb us, and we're not going to catch on fire. But no one's protecting us from those threats that we're talking about, right? So it's so frustrating. That's what I'm saying. That I'm just talking about evacuations. So evacuations. Yeah, fire, I don't know if it's your code, but fire code, do you have to evacuate? Do you have to, right?
Yes.
So you gotta practice that drill. But I'm saying if there's any other indicators when you hear a fire alarm go off that you shouldn't evacuate, wait until you smell smoke. Does that make sense?
Well-
Don't evacuate.
Here at Tunxis, they say if there's a shelter in place,
Yes,
ignore fire drills.
Yes.
Or the fire alarm,
yes,
rather.
yes.
ignore
But
it.
most times,
Yeah.
so like in Parkland, that didn't happen, right? Obviously. Now, the smoke from that fire alarm is what set off the smoke detectors. The smoke from the gun in the classroom set off the fire alarm, right? No one pulled it, and that's what happened. So what I'm saying is, don't. I just want you to triage that. You got to triage it personally and make that decision. Does that make sense? What I'm saying? So, if there's any other indicators when the fire alarm goes off that it could be something else, wait until you smell smoke. That makes sense? I'd rather smell smoke and be able to than go out into the unknown and have a threat out there. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So, and violate the fire code all day long. Have them call me. I don't know, but I can't. identify, I talked about social media, right? Go ahead. So this is the pathway to violence. This is what I was talking about here. So, so someone has a issue, right? Someone's upset about something that made them angry, and they're going to think about doing something. And this is where this is right here on the pre-attack information. This is where we want to this is where they're going to share information. This is where they're going to talk about it, and this is where the reporting tips issue happens, right? Where pre-attack preparation, they may visit a site, they may walk through it, and scope it out and look at emergency plans, right? What are their emergency plans? That's why I talk about it even in classrooms, right? We're not going to put our lockdown procedures and advertise it for everyone to know. Listen, most times it's pretty simple, right? Lock the doors, close the lights, stand against the wall. It's not rocket science. It's not confidential information. Most time it's general. But what I'm saying is, they're pre-attack. They're going to, if they're not familiar with the site, most times they're going to visit it. Most times it's not something they decided to do 10 minutes ago.
Going back to what you were saying before about, sort of talking to other people about whether they've noticed this person, how do you recommend that you approach that situation? I understand you want to assess to see if this person's really a threat, if other people have noticed these things, but I could also see that turning into like hysteria, where everyone's like, oh my God,
Oh yeah, especially in the environment you're in.
I mean, I get what you're saying then.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
or do you just go back to what you said before? If you know, just call the police.
You could call the police, but then the police are going to visit their house, right? Most of the time. I mean, do you need to set off that alarm yet? I don't know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I would just say, again, I don't know your environment, but I would say, do you know other parents enough to say, hey, Jim has been making some strange comments. Have you heard anything? You know what I mean? Is that?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that's a good question, but if he's saying it to you, when I say you, if he says it in front of you, he's going to say it in front of other people too. You know what I mean? He doesn't want you to know. And people, not always the intent, they just can't keep it inside, right? Like the generation that's sharing it also over social media, like in my generation, that would be like a clue, like giving something, like I wouldn't share that information, right? But 90% of the time they share it, and they just can't, because this is not very fast. This takes a little while.
Right.
So this may take a year, 2 years. I forgot the one I just read, the report I just read. It was in planning for like 2 years or something. But there's so many incidents, you can Google them, there's so many incidents that have been stopped, and more all the time because of training and information. But that's a good question. I would just triage that by yourself and say, who am I comfortable talking to? Is anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with, talking to administration and things like that. With parents, I think that gets a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Tricky.
I agree. I know.
They're like,
I agree. I know.
Be mama bears.
I know. And then what are you accusing me of, right? People's parents start talking, they're like, well, you're accusing me? What are you know what I mean? I'm just saying I'd rather have someone upset than somebody hurt.
Yeah.
Right? I don't, right? I mean, I just weigh it out. So the rest is, there was a student that came forward, I don't know which incident it was, but there was a young kid that came forward, and he had a pretty solid plans to do a school attack right after Parkland, and he came forward and said to his mother, hey Mom, I can't have this on my conscience, like this is what I was planning to do. This was a long time in the making, had all the resources, he was ready to just pull the pin, right, and make it happen. And the police department and the school and everyone, they expelled him, they're making an example out of him. I says, my opinion is, even when I get a report on LiveSafe, right, my opinion is, and my direction is, I'm not here to get someone in trouble, I'm here to get people help, right? This is about mental health help. We're not here to incriminate, jail, right? What does that solve? Like, my mission is to get people help, right? People could be temporary, could be chronic mental illness. I'm not blaming this on mental illness, by the way, because I've done these presentations and I've been challenged, and that's fine, but a lot of these incidents, people with mental illness have done these incidents, right? I'm not saying this is a cause of mental illness. I'm not saying everyone with mental illness is a potential person to commit this. It's like 2% in the country that. So just let me preface that for a second before. but does that make sense? I like get people the help they need, right? That's my mission and goal. So, I think that's the last slide, right? I think that's the last slide. Well, let me talk about some other stuff for a second on the questions you had, and ask questions as I finish up here. So I talked about reporting tips, which is important. I'll leave this information here. I hate the term active shooter, but I'll leave this for you for information you can read. When I talk about threat assessment, I'm very involved in an association of threat assessment professionals. I have great resources available to me. One is a doctor. She does forensic evaluations, has her own company. But I get a threat assessment. So I'll reach out to her, who's on my team, and she does this in the middle of the night for me, literally. Like, hey, there's a threat. I give her all the intel on the threat. She does a formal assessment on me, recommendations, referral information, background information, impressions and recommendations from a doctor of psychology, management plan. What's the management plan? So it's very formal, and it has to be formal for me. That what are we going to do? What's our plan? What kind of threat do we think we're dealing with? And what's our follow-up? What's our case management? What's all that stuff? And it's important to do that. I'm going a little fast.
Does she have experience with children and families?
Yeah.
I think those are like great resources. I think something we don't always
Yeah, she has her own. Yeah, she spends
refer people.
90% of her time doing testimony in court on these evaluations. Like, she's so, I'm not pimping her up, but she's like so amazing. Like it's amazing. She just emailed me this morning and sent me a video on I'm the president of our campus law enforcement association. She wants me to do some legislation on a bill passing legislation on threat assessment teams and stuff. Let me finish up with just stuff I wanted to talk about, and then we'll talk about what you're talking about. There's other stuff out. We talk about locks and securing your areas. So there's other stuff out there. I just put some of these films are this clear, and I just put some of these films on some of our places on my campus. One of them is human resources, potential target, right? Payroll, potential target, right? My dispatch center, potential target, right? So I put these. I'll send Joyce the video if you want it. I don't think I tried to put it in here, but I couldn't. I didn't have much time. Anyhow, this is not, but you can't get. Yes, you cannot get through it. West Hartford did a demo on this. West Hartford PD did a demo on this. You can't get through it. They're hitting it with sledgehammers, trying to shoot through it with rifles. A bullet will go through this, but you're not gonna. If you have a glass door, right? So you have a glass door here, and you have a lock. What good is this glass door now, right? Because I'm gonna kick the glass door out, and I'm coming through, right?
And that tour I talked about this morning, one of my families, that the father specifically asked when he talked about security here on campus, at our center, because it's all glass, it's a whole glass wall.
And glass is nice.
The glass.
Glass is nice.
I said, well, we hide, it's okay, and I couldn't obviously tell them where we hide, but it's not near them. But they can get
glass
in.
is nice. You're not going to get through
The
this,
lock's
though.
not gonna
You're not going to get through this.
So what is that? Is that something you put on the glass?
It's yes. So this it's a 3M film, and there's different. This one's this one is you can put it on the outside of the window, so it's only one way. This one's a little thinner. I put the thick one on. You can't tell it. You would not know that there's anything on the window. This is a little thinner, so it depends what you. So it's 3M. I'll leave Joyce some information on it if you want. They're right here locally. They come and install it, and if you saw the video on this, I have it on my phone. You're welcome to watch it. But if you saw the video on this, they're trying to get through it with sledgehammers. You're not getting through it. Not getting through it. The police will be there, so we talk about this again. We're still building buildings with glass, right? I'm not saying glass is a bad thing, but if you want, like I said, I'm talking about human resources for me. Human resources has a glass door and a lock here. But you're not getting through that. You're not getting through it, not by the time we get there, right? You could
just to keep them out long enough until you guys get
and it's very long. Like I'll send you the video, Joyce, and you can the link to it because I can't play it.
You said you did something on what's the estimate price? Just a ballpark.
It was I'll tell you right now. It was so I put the expensive glass on. I shouldn't even give out this price, but I put the expensive glass on, the thick one with caulking around it. Caulking is a little extra, so you can't kick, it won't shatter, but you still can't get through it. I think it was $250 or something.
For the door?
For the door, yeah.
Oh, that's not.
Yeah, so I think their minimum is to come out as like $500 or something, but I'm doing a whole bunch of projects on that, right? Where glass is nice, like they're building a whole new student success center, I haven't seen it yet, but the whole front of it's glass, right? I'm not gonna, I don't know, sheet the whole, right? But we're talking about places just to get entry, right? Now you just wanna buy time, you need to be able to lock down to buy time. When you go into lockdown, you need to be able to be prepared for that. What are you gonna do for that time frame until the police get there, right? When the police get there, the police got to figure it out still, right? My response to an incident is probably under a minute on our campus for us to be there. We're prepared to handle any incident we need to. That's getting there, right? Now we got to wave through the crowd, find the threat. That threat at Parkland was a moving threat that whole time, right? He was moving, and then he dropped his guns and blended out with, you left with all the other students, right? Now, we're looking for a threat that's not there. Anyhow, it wouldn't happen in your...
So, I would think that the police officers need to know the layout of your building,
Yes.
for
Yep.
one thing, right?
Yeah.
So, in here, because everybody's building is different, right? But in here, every room has what the room number is inside as well as outside. So if a person is in here and you're going through an emergency threat, you can't remember where the room number is.
That's right.
So now it's always
That's right.
inside. And also, there was a thought of it having something outside the window too. So then the emergency, help can see where that room is from outside too. So just to be aware, like if you have substitutes or somebody who's not familiar with the names of the rooms, that might be just not expensive.
Let the police department know where
Yeah.
your lockdown room is, right?
Right.
Have them come visit your facility, and I hate to call them a safe room, some people will call it a safe room, right? It's not a safe room, right, if you're in a lockdown, but let the police department know where you're gonna be, right? So I go through and do threat assessment walkthroughs, and I'll make recommendations. Hey, this is what I suggest your safe room will be, this is my opinion, the safest room in your area. This is where I suggest you go as a group if there's a potential threat, and this is where you should go into lockdown. The police department should know where you are and how to get in there, and you should not open that door, right, unless you're confident that the person on the other side has the credentials.
We're doing a project at church, and one of the things we're doing is giving the police department a PDF of the layout of the entire building, so that way they can load it into their dispatch system, and
That's
they're
right.
labeling all of the rooms based on what we call them internally, because
Right.
otherwise they're not gonna know what.
Fire department too, should have that.
Yep,
Yeah,
and they can then pull it up in the
Yeah.
dispatch and say, oh, that room is,
That's right.
here.
that's right.
We're also giving them a key. In Southington, the supervisors have basically a key lockbox in the car.
For the command post.
In their command vehicle.
Yep.
Because if you give them a key code and there's no power, then it doesn't work. And they're like, if we can't get in, we're driving the car through
Yeah.
the door. And they're like, have
Here's
a
a
key.
key.
Have a key.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they inventory the keys like at the beginning and end of every shift.
Yeah.
And they've got keys for buildings all over town.
There's a big key box to the whole town back there.
That's a good idea to label public schools do this,
Yeah.
public for decades, but you'll notice, like on the outside of the classroom windows, there's a number, and the police departments have the floor plan.
Right.
And they also should be given, they're not always given, but they should be given the schedule with how many children are in each of those numbers at what time of day. So if there ever was an incident, and I know we're not talking about that large of a scale for preschools, but it is a nice idea to have the exterior of the window labeled with, like, even what you said, whatever you call it, for them to know. I think that's a great idea.
So just
We've
like
had
in
trouble
the,
finding stickers that were backwards though, so
just put placards then,
like
just
just anything.
police department should be able to
Just
do that
anything.
for you. Yeah. In the presentation we do on Sandy Hook, we're calling it shaving seconds. We're calling it shaving seconds. So when you call the police department on this emergency, and we're trying to train dispatchers too, right? Ask the right information quickly. People are dying by seconds, right? You need to know where they spend a lot of time on what school you at? oh, that school, oh, that's not my, because when you call 911, it goes to a whole phone tree, right? We're trying to get, you listen to those dispatch tape, it's going to a whole bunch of people, and we're trying to get it to the people are dying by seconds. So, know who to call and how to get right through to them, know what information, tell them quickly. Can you describe the shooter? No, get people here. I don't need to describe the shooter. I'm in this room, I hear gunfire, get people here, right? This is my address. Like, so shaving seconds is really important. Talk about that for a second. I know
Is
I
it true
wrap
that
up.
you can text 911 now?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I haven't done that, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how.
You know, it's probably GPS coordinate,
Yeah.
but how accurate is that right down to where you are?
Right, exactly.
I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
I want to answer your question you raised earlier. So we're talking about soft target. How can you harden your target? I say that you don't need to. You can make it clear that parents may get annoyed with you having this whole process for coming through. Right now, I go to a bunch of places now where you can't get in. Right now, you literally have to be buzzed in. Right, you have to. Now there's a whatever you call those ring doorbells that you got to look on a camera and see how you are. I mean, go visit the new Sandy Hook school. That's. So when I say become a hardened target, and you can make that clear, right? I mean, make that clear that. And just last thing is, because I want to wrap up, and I'm available to stay if you have questions. So I just want to be cognizant of your time. But I say the thing we've been teaching across the country right now is run, hide, fight, right? And I've been telling people years and years ago, I've been arguing with panels on this, we can't teach people to run, hide, and fight, because that's not the order, because we're teaching people to run, hide, and fight, that's what they're going to do, that's what we're training them to do, but it may be fight, run, hide, it may be, right? We got to mix that up, and when I say experts argue with me until now I should be getting, I should be a millionaire right now, because they're changing their tune. Maybe we don't want to do that. I'm like, I've been saying that for 10 years. So triage, when I say maybe run, hide, fight, it may be talking about evacuation, triage, and that stuff, but you maybe fight, run, hide, maybe do all that stuff, right? Don't be afraid, don't underestimate yourself. Please, ever, I don't care who you are, what size you are, don't underestimate yourself for fighting. Don't underestimate yourself for attacking an attacker, ever, because it's saved tons of lives. And my family, even my wife and children, even will say to me, Dad, what are you gonna do with a small shooter here? And I'm like, I'm going for the shooter, right? What is wrong with you? You're crazy. Yeah, but I'm not gonna let people die. I'm trained. I'm not. You're here to protect us. I know. I'm a Superman cape, but you know what I mean. But don't underestimate that. People, I know so many lives have been lost because people underestimated themselves and went down because they had the chance to fight. Does that make sense?
Gentleman in New Zealand, there was the incident on the second.
Yes, second,
That
yeah.
he had a cash machine, and that's what stopped and had the
Yeah.
shooter run.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was one person that,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
where, I don't want to say only 7 people
Right,
died.
that's right.
But
Even in that, again, I'm going to stop now unless you have a question you can ask, but even in the park, I include a presentation on some of the Pulse nightclub, right? There were, how many people in that? There were 10 people in that bathroom with that Pulse nightclub shooter. His whole goal for that shooting was to be on social media. He sat in that bathroom with those 10 other people, seeing how much following he was getting on social media. And those other people in the bathroom, I mean, God bless them, but they're on social media too, texting their family, I'm going to die here, I love you, and I'll miss you. Like, you could have taken that shooter and pummeled him. Yes. You see what I'm saying? Like, again, it's about training your brain. In a panic incident like that, I understand if you're not trained, you don't need to be a black belt, but you just have to have the mission driven. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Like, man, like
Hard things we could throw, right?
anything. I mean, I know there were schools.
Staplers.
It's a joke, but just a distraction enough, right? To distraction enough to then pile on some threat, and there's pepper spray. I do a lot of training, and there's people I teach for now that are promoting. Hey, give all the teachers pepper spray. Pepper spray is a huge asset, but I'm not promoting pepper sprays in your centers. That's not my call. But anyhow, I'll stick around. I want to end here for Joyce.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.